traveling, working, and living full-time in my Class B van along with my dog, Willie Nelson. I'm Milo, and this is Milo Talks. Do you still dream? I started this podcast with the idea that as I traveled, I'd be meeting people along the way and talking to them about their lives. Due to COVID, I found a new way to interview people without them actually being in my van, which also meant I could interview people that I had never met in person. That is the case here. This is Brian, another podcaster who, until this conversation, I had never spoken to on the phone. Our conversation was spurred by a response he gave to a question I asked him in a Facebook chat as to why he does a podcast. Here's our conversation. So we're going to change this up a little bit. So you and I have not met, and that is because you live, what state are you in?
I live in California. I live in Mountain View, California, okay. Silicon Valley.
Okay. You didn't have to get that specific. I mean, you never know who's listening. But no, that's good.
Hey,
okay,
if somebody can find me in Mountain View, California, come say hi. We'll have a drink.
Just tell them Milo sent you. Okay, well, currently I'm sitting outside the vet's office in Biloxi, Mississippi, because my dog has been in and out of a vet's office for the last, 9 months.
Poor puppy.
So thank you for agreeing to do this. And not only have we not met because you live in California, but we completely don't know each other. And the only reason we are even acquainted is because of a Facebook group about podcasters. And so how long have you been doing podcasting?
Yeah, so I actually just started in November. And it's one of those things that once you start doing it and you start promoting your show, you discover that this entire other world that you didn't realize existed with podcasters. It started on Reddit, where I started meeting a bunch of different podcasters. Then I discovered that there's a number of different Facebook groups, which is where I ended up meeting you. And it's been fantastic because there's a bit of a camaraderie amongst podcasters. We're all going through the same thing. We're all trying to get our voice out there, regardless of what our topic is. So there's a little bit of an understanding. And I found at least the podcasters I've spoken with have all just come across as really good and interesting people. And you are obviously no exception. We've kind of hit it off, I would say.
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, I secretly loathe you, but no, it's... I'm joking.
Well, look, that's good that you can just come out and say that. That's an important trait in a human being. So I thank you for being honest.
You're welcome. I mean, you're doing so well. You have a producer, like you, everything I don't have. You literally have a show where someone produces your show for you. Someone edits your video for you. You have guests that come on regularly and help you with your content. You have so much content that you can record up to 2 hours a week, and you probably have to trim that down. Because I have a feeling that you and your friends like go way over your hour limits or your time limits. Because you have,
I crack the whip pretty hard. I consider myself I like to say a halfway decent host. I will keep them on script. So we don't tend to get a lot. Maybe we should. We probably miss out on some gold content by not riffing as much. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I'm very fortunate in that I do have a job that pays well. That is also fairly flexible from a scheduling standpoint. So it's not like somebody discovered me and gave me a producer and all this. No, it's just because I happen to have the money and I'm able to spend a little bit.
And just so everyone understands, you don't make a dime off your podcast. This is purely out of the love of the content of what you're sharing.
100%. It was never about, I didn't start the podcast with a goal of monetizing it. I know a lot of podcasters do, and I totally understand that. I chased a music career for 10 years. I was a drummer in a rock band, so I understand trying to create something and get paid for that. Luckily, I was in a position where I didn't have to do that. I was just doing it for the love of the show that I wanted to create. And no, I do not make $8 off my podcast.
Now, tell all my 13 listeners the name of your podcast.
So my podcast is called the Pigskin Party Podcast. It actually changed. It started off the Pigskin and Politics podcast because my crazy idea, because I really enjoy talking politics and I enjoy football. So I'm like, why don't I start a podcast that combines both? A novel idea, sure, but there's a reason that there's no other podcast in the world that exists that combines those two because, spoiler alert, they don't necessarily go together.
No, but So the reason we started communicating is because you did this ingenious thing where you called out for an exchange, someone to give you honest feedback, and you would do the same. And my goal was that you would listen to my podcast and just fall in love with it and subscribe and never miss an episode. I don't feel that I hit my mark with you, but I feel like you did give me some really great feedback because you were not connected to me. We weren't friends, right? You had nothing to win or lose by just helping this person out, and you were honest, which I appreciate. And in return, I listened to yours. I was less interested in the NFL stuff just because if anyone knows me, they know that that's not my cup of tea. But you did this one. Yeah, but you did the one with The Office and Parks and Rec, and I actually found that really interesting. So what do you call your offshoots? Because you have your regular one, and then you have the secondary one.
Correct. So that we started off we've always done 2 episodes a week. It was the NFL one was always the main episode, and originally the second episode was politics. But we separated those by we had a segment called the palate cleanser, because I didn't expect people to just listen to football and then immediately listen to politics. So we had this kind of pop culture segment that separated the two. And as we morphed out of the politics, that just became a different football topic, but we kept the palate cleanser, the pop culture kind of in between topic. So we call the second episode the flavor of the week, because it's less news oriented, more just like a random NFL topic, but we kept the palate cleanser because the listeners really enjoyed it. So the episode you're referring to, our palate cleanser, was which is better, The Office or Parks and Recreation? And it was a very spirited debate that went on. And those are usually some of the most fun that we have on the show, is that little 10 to 15 minute pop culture segment.
That's funny. And it was really interesting because I could relate to that. I enjoyed both those shows. So to the heart of why I asked you to join me today is that in one of my moments I've had many times starting to ask the big question, why? Why do I put in all the hours? Why am I doing the podcast? Why do I bother? Why? When there's so many other things I could be doing with the hours I spend putting these things together. So I asked you, why do you do a podcast? And, especially when you aren't making any money from it. And I know how long it takes. And I know some of the costs that we put into it every month. And I loved your response because you said, and I was very surprised, that you had a dream. So share with me what your dream is.
And so first, I think it's important for a distinction that I've actually had multiple dreams over my life that have shifted at various points, because I'm just naturally a dreamer. I'm just somebody, I'm what they call, an eternal optimist, more practical in my adult days than I was maybe as a youth, but I've still always been the kind to believe that I can achieve what I'm going for. And if I don't, okay, I'll pick a different dream. So the particular dream I have now, during the pandemic, which, a lot of people started looking inward because, where else is there to look, right? When you're stuck indoors between your four walls for as long as we have been. What exactly I enjoyed doing. I've always loved the National Football League and football in general, and actually started off college going as a communications major and with an eye on being a broadcaster in sports, and then actually discovered music. So that was one of the dreams I chased, is I did try to pursue a career as a rock drummer for 10 years. So yeah, I wore eyeliner and eyeshadow and, all that, all in the name of marketing. But
of course,
recently, yeah, of course, naturally. Even then, I understood branding. I didn't wear that during the day. I sold high-end furniture during the day. But I'm like, you know what? Do whatever you want with me. So they would give me spiked belts and whatever. Everything lives on the internet. It's all online. You can see all crazy photos of me.
So funny.
But this most recent dream was, I turned 40 last year. So now I'm the big 4-0. And instead of buying a sports car, I decided to start my own sports show. Because I love talking in depth about the National Football League and football, and I didn't really have an outlet for that. So the show was kind of my outlet. And then I brought on one of my friends to be a co-host, and it just kind of started growing. And I just found that I loved doing it. Found out I kind of have a knack for it, I feel, at hosting, even though I'd never done a podcast before. And big, pie in the sky dream is not necessarily that the show itself takes off. If it does, fantastic. But it's more like, oh, maybe I'll get discovered as somebody who is really good at hosting a sports show, and maybe I'll get called on by ESPN or NFL Network to be, an NFL analyst. It's a long shot, especially at this age. I'm not starting in my 20s and working my way up. But if it doesn't work out, hey, I love doing the show, and it'll just be a fun little side project.
But I love the idea that you have a dream. So here's my question. At what point do we move from dreams to goals? So when we're younger, we're like, I have a dream. When I grow up, I want to be, the lead on Broadway, right? That was probably one of my dreams. But when does it, I would think that when we get older, do we stop dreaming and we just start planning and having goals and like putting something in motion because we are able to, like, I would guess what it's going to take for you to get to actually achieve this dream. So how is it not just a goal? Is it not something you can actually strive for? Because you said you think you might be too old for it. So is a dream something you think that is possible, but you don't think you're going to get it? Whereas if it was a goal, you would be setting things in motion to achieve it. So what's the difference? Like, is it really just a dream, or do you have a goal?
I think that's probably semantics. I think you can have a...
No, it's not. Well, no, it's not semantics.
Okay, I'll explain. So,
go ahead.
What is any dream? When I say dream, I mean, like, we're specifically kind of talking about career dreams. I mean, you can have other dreams too, but what is any dream except an extremely lofty goal? I mean, that's, we're not, you've got daydreams of settling Mars, whatever. Fine. Okay. That's not really a career. That's not a goal. That's just, but when people say a dream, it's usually something they're pursuing, and anything you're pursuing could therefore be a goal if you actually take actions towards that goal. So I guess maybe some people have dreams and don't do anything about it. I've always been, once I have something set, call it a dream, call it a goal, I'm very determined to get that. Doesn't mean I'll always get it. I'm not unrealistic, but I'm certainly going to take the steps to go towards that dream/goal. So take music, for instance. I chased that for 10 years. I discovered towards the end of my freshman year in college, I went to school at Florida State, in northern Florida, that I loved performing music. I didn't have any musical training. This was before I even started drumming. I did a karaoke contest in college and won, and I just loved the feeling of being on stage. So in that moment, 20 years old, I said, okay, I'm going to be a performing musician. I didn't even play anything. I'm not even that good of a singer. It was just, I just loved being on stage. And then,
okay, I need to stop you.
Okay.
Okay. What was the song in karaoke that you won?
It was Nookie by Limp Bizkit.
I don't even know what that song is.
Oh.
I don't even know that song.
So
you won first place?
That means you're at least somewhat younger than me. Yes. So
I'm 10 years older than you.
Wow,
I don't know what that song is.
You don't know who Limp Bizkit is? Do you remember saying?
I mean, I know who they are, but I don't know that song. Like, how did the song go?
I did it all for the Nookie. Come on, the Nookie. Come on, so you can take the. Nothing. It was their most famous song.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Oh, I think I was on an island that year.
Oh,
That's
maybe.
right.
But do you remember? Here's a question for you. Do you remember Say What Karaoke, a popular show on MTV in the 90s?
No.
Okay. Wow. Did you just not watch MTV?
Correct.
Oh, well,
no,
there you go. Well, there's your reasoning. Of course, you're not going to know that if you weren't actually watching it.
So you won. I just want to break this down. You won a karaoke contest when you were in your 20s?
Yeah, I was 20. It was my freshman. It was the end of my freshman year of college. Well, actually, I might have been 19. Yeah.
And that ignited in you what was going to be a 10-year journey.
Correct.
To try to be a professional musician, and you taught yourself the drums.
Yes. This was before I was practical. This was just me, like,
okay.
pure blind faith in myself. Then it was just, like I said, I've become more practical and pragmatic as I've gotten older. But at that age, I'm like, of course I can do it. I can achieve whatever I want. It was this whole, our generation, our parents told us we can be whatever we want. So I took that literally.
I mean, it's pretty great, but did you take lessons? Did you teach yourself? Like, you went from karaoke to drums.
Yes. Yeah. So
Why didn't you just become a major singer? Like, why would you even worry with an instrument when you had your voice?
Well, there was a few years in between that transition from singing to drumming, and I was trying to make it as a singer. And it's not that I have an awful voice, but it's nothing special. But I just love performing. So I, for years, tried to start up bands. I was looking for a guitar player, and I wasn't in the music world at all. I was, raised on sports as a kid. So I'm looking for guitar players and drummers, and it just never worked. I never started a single band as a singer. And this is going to tie in, interestingly, to my current podcast, believe it or not. But I met a bag boy in a grocery store. You're from the Southeast, so you probably heard of Publix.
Yes.
Right. All right. So I worked in a Publix grocery store when I was like maybe 22, and I met this really annoying bag boy who wouldn't shut up about whatever. He was a freshman, so he was probably 18. But then we started bonding on music, and we found out that he's a drummer. I'm like, good, finally. So this is 22. So we're talking about 3 years. I've never started a band, but I still have that dream. Didn't accomplish anything other than I just knew I wanted to do it. And I finally met a drummer, and it still didn't work. And one day he wrote he also played guitar. So he wrote some tracks on guitar. He asked me to play his drum set just so he could have a beat. I'm like, I don't know how to play drums. He's like, just sit down, just give me a basic little, I'm like, fine. And I don't know how to describe it other than drums just made sense.
Oh, wow.
Like, I sat down and I just knew what to do. But even in the moment, I had fun, but I didn't think twice about it. Fast forward like 3 months, and I'm hanging out with him. I had moved at this point. I didn't even live in that same city anymore. And he was visiting, and he puts in a CD. He's like, you got to hear this. And I heard myself drumming for the first time with him playing guitar. And only then did it hit me like, holy crap, I know how to drum. Hearing myself back. So that was the moment. So this is 3 years later, but that's the moment that everything changed, because then we decided to start a band, but with him playing guitar and me playing drums. So then we had to find a bass player and a singer, and that didn't take long at all. So it's like the puzzle pieces. As soon as I realized I was a drummer and not a singer, the puzzle pieces started falling in place.
And did your band perform?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We played
what was the name of your band?
Well, so there's a number of bands in between. The first band didn't do much at all. The first band was named after our singer's last name. It was like Fire with an S on the front, Fire. But that didn't turn. But that led to, once that band broke up, I joined a metal band and really started to expand on my drumming skills. Still never had any lessons. And this was in Florida. And then I moved to New York City in 2007, and then auditioned for a band that ended up being my most successful band, and called Someday Static. So that's the band that is, we have one of our music videos on YouTube has over 1 million views. It was a pretty successful band. We had an album on iTunes. We had a couple tours we did. And then finally I did take lessons once we went in to do our first studio album, because I didn't know how to play to a click track. Do you know what a click track is?
No, of course not.
Well, okay. Well, it's, I didn't want to assume. I'm trying to.
Oh my gosh, no. I've never been in a band.
It helps you keep time. So it's just literally a track that's in your ear that's like tap, 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 so that the song is actually on the same time. Otherwise, you're human. You can sway the speed of the song, and it should be the same speed all the way through. So that's what a click track is. Well, somebody who's taught themselves drums and never had lessons, playing to a click track is like a different language. So I had to take lessons specifically so I could learn to play to a click. So I did take lessons later, but this is years after I started drumming.
So interesting. Okay, so why did you leave the band? Why did you leave the dream, the 10-year dream of being in a band? You made it. You were in a band. It got closer to being a career than anybody would think. So I didn't end it. The band broke up. The singer, we had a female singer and female guitar, keyboard player, but they were much younger. At this point, I was 30. So it shows you how long I was chasing this. So I was 30. They were like, I think the singer was 24 and the keyboard player was 21. So they're kids. I'm starting more toward trying to be a responsible adult. Myself and the bass player, he was like 31, 32. We kind of handled more of the business side of it. We were really getting a lot of momentum. We were speaking to producers and record labels and all of that. And then
one day after a tour that didn't go as well, maybe as we would have hoped, we get an email from the singer saying they're breaking the band up. And the band had been together for like 2.5 years at that point. They're breaking the band up to start their own project. And that was literally the day that my music career ended. And the reason I say we came close to making it is because a music video we had just shot released like less than a month after we broke up. That is now the music video that has over 1 million views. So with that, those 1 million views are all post-band. And there's something like 500 comments on there, Milo, of like, where can I find this album? Where is this band? Can you guys come play in our hometown? This is like 10 years ago. So yeah, I came within 30 days of making music.
Wow.
So how that ties into my current situation is my co-host was that annoying bag boy from Publix. My co-host of my current NFL podcast was that annoying bag boy that I started my first band with something like almost 20 years ago.
You're kidding.
No, we reconnected specifically for this. I asked him, because we stayed in touch, but like social media, but I knew he was big into football and, you know, I thought his personality would work well. And so I asked him, and he's been the co-host since like maybe the 4th episode. But yeah, he's somebody that I started my first band with. So there's at least a little bit of a tie together.
The band's still together, just
That's
talking.
Right. Exactly. After all these years, something no music. We're making football music, different kind of music.
So do you think he has the same dream as far as like, what if you guys were to become syndicated or get picked up and become nationally recognized and be able to talk about NFL sports together? Does he have that same dream? No.
And he's been very cool. And we actually, one of our Flavor of the Week episodes, and it's an episode I think you could appreciate. This was before we did the NFL, but it was after politics. There was a small period there where we just talked about random stuff. So our episode was all about bands because our guest was was about drumming because our guest met his wife in high school. They were in the drum corps together. I was obviously a drummer. I met Will, my co-host. Initially, he was a drummer and I was a singer. So we all had a drumming background, but it ended up turning the conversation on the podcast about our dreams. And Will actually said that he admired that I was always the dreamer and he always took the more practical approach. So now at this point, it's not like he doesn't put anything. I mean, he's a great co-host, but I do everything. I do all the promoting. I do the planning. I do the guest booking. I do all of it. And he's just kind of along for the ride. So, yeah.
As he was.
Yeah.
In the band.
Exactly. It's always kind of been that. And I'm fine with that dynamic. I really am. I think it works well. He's a good counter to me. We're very different people. So I think it works nicely.
But it also gives you control of the content and control of the show, and you're not having someone else do all those things.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I'm okay with it because it's my baby, and I get to do what I want with it, start to finish.
So back to the basis of this. So you feel that dreams and goals are the same. It's just semantics.
Yeah, I mean, once you take a step towards achieving that dream, it becomes a goal.
So if you have a dream, but you're not doing anything to achieve it, it'll always just be a dream. But you set a...
Correct. No different than you going to sleep and dreaming about being on Mars.
But if I take that dream and start studying astrophysics, then I might get to Mars. Then it becomes a goal.
Sure.
Okay.
Exactly.
I feel like it was more of a teaching lesson for Milo than anything else.
You're welcome.
No. I refuse.
I'm just babbling here and stuff coming out.
I refuse to accept it. I feel that dreamers dream sometimes impossible dreams, which is why there's a song about it, because you still dream it and you still, I mean, I don't know. So you're still doing the work. You're putting the work in with the NFL. Someone might just hear you someday, probably on my show, talking right now.
This is exactly how I'm going to get discovered. All because Milo talks. Like that's where we're looking for the NFL host.
Who is that great guy on Milo's show? That's right. We found him. How do we find that guy? He sounded great on her show.
I'll have to pay you some royalties after I make it big.
Oh, believe me, I'll be like your other friend on your coattails.
Happy to.
You'll have a whole slew of us. Well, thanks for starting the conversation with my what happens to our dreams when we get older kind of concept, because I'm going to talk to a few people about this. I want to see if other people actually lose their dreams. I think it's great that you at 40, which is still very young, have a dream. I at 50 also have dreams.
By the way, FYI, because I've watched your YouTube show, I never would have guessed. Like, I literally told you, oh, you must be younger. So just FYI, not just saying that. You do not look 50.
Oh, so, yeah, I turned 50. I'll be 51 this year. Wow. Thanks. It's the camera angles and the special lighting that I use. Actually, you want to know the secret? I'll tell you the secret. Hold on, I got to yell at my dog because he's getting in the toilet. Hold on. Get out of there. Okay, he's out. So I'm going to totally keep that part in too.
You should.
Is that, you know how you'll never look your age? Is if you're constantly smiling.
Yeah, I've learned that trick too. I get told I look much younger than I am. So yeah, just always smile.
Well, then you should frown more. If you want to look mature, frown. If you want to look young, put a smile on your face.
Well, I'm going to keep, I can't help but smile. So I guess I'll always look a little younger. Let's stay looking young. There's no rush to look.
No, that's good.
Mature.
So you're going to keep smiling and you're going to keep dreaming. Yeah. And when you become famous because of this podcast, you won't forget me.
100% credit goes to Milo and no one else.
Okay, so tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can hear the Pigskin Party podcast anywhere you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google, you name it. We also have a YouTube show. We release 2 episodes a week. Our main NFL episode is released on Wednesdays, and our Flavor of the Week episode, the ones that Milo might actually listen to with the pop culture stuff, that releases on Friday.
I'll listen. Thank you so much for your time and for all your help with the feedback on the podcast. And when I make it to be famous, I will go, Brian who?
Yeah, I'll be a little footnote if that, and I'm okay with that,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Milo. It's been great.
Note to self. Making us all feel a little bit closer to each other is what I would say in the intro to my first season podcast. Funny that this is the conversation that makes me realize how closely we are to being connected. 2 people who have never met and live across the country from each other can end up on a Facebook group. And because of a simple comment he leaves, we meet. Our lives are so similar. I was also a broadcasting major, wanted to work in radio and or television. And then life happens. I went in a different direction for a while, as did he. Actually, I went in many different directions. But we both ended up doing the one thing we started off to do. This show was supposed to be about dreams, but maybe it's about finding your way back to where you started, to that first dream. Or maybe it's about how we are very similar. We all are so close to each other, just like a few degrees of separation from having the same life, the same dreams. I also sang karaoke and wanted to join a band. I didn't win any contests. Even had a band name picked out, Low Tide. I do play the ukulele, so that dream is far from dead, unless you've heard me play the ukulele. I will keep asking about dreams as adults. My hope is that we don't lose them, but perhaps we just dream bigger. Until next time, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to Milo Talks. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Milo Talks, or email me at milotalkstostrangers@gmail.com.